Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about getting started with Merch by Amazon in their content policies. If we go over to our Merch by Amazon account and we look at our resource section, we have in the Merch by Amazon overview section, we have a content policy section. This is going to go over what is acceptable and what is not acceptable on the Merch by Amazon platform. Now, this is a very important part of Merch by Amazon, and you want to make sure that you thoroughly read through this information. You do not want to have your account repeatedly stricken and have the possibility of losing your account because you will not be able to get it back. We're talking about pretty easy money here with Merch by Amazon, and by breaking the rules, very simple rules, you can easily get your account removed. So if we go through if we look at our content policies here, it's pretty straightforward. You can't put up copyrighted content or trademark content. Okay, so the difference between copyright and trademark is essentially copyrighted content is anything that was not created by yourself. Essentially, anything that's been created by somebody else and didn't and in turn they own the copyright to that content. Okay, now they may be able to give it to you or license you that content, but anything that is not created by yourself or created for yourself, like if you didn't hire somebody to do it for you, which in turn you own the content because they're working for you. In most cases, in some cases that's not the case, but in most cases they're contracted for you, and so therefore the content is also under your contract. That means you don't own the copyright to that imagery, so you can't use that imagery in your design. You have to get approval for whoever created that content before you can use it. Trademark is slightly different. Trademark is something that is regulated by the governments. In trademark, you can actually look up any kind of a trademarked content. So if you're living in the United States, you'd go to the USPTO website. United Kingdom and Germany have their own separate websites, and that's going to be this website here. Once you're here, you go to the trademarks link here. You'll just click on that, and then click on search TESS. That's going to let you search the database for trademarked content. And then you'll just go over to the basic word search, because that's what we're looking for here. And you just type in the term that you're looking for. Let's just say we're looking for "who's that dog." We want to see if that phrase, that grouping of words, is trademarked by any company. And so we'll do search query, and we could see that the word KI space PRO, for whatever reason, that I don't know how they got to that, because we didn't even we put in "who's that dog," and for whatever reason this trademark came up. So that would mean that for that phrase "who's that dog" would be a safe trademark for you to use, because that's obviously not "who's that dog" as a trademarked word. The trademarked word is actually Kai Pro here. You could see when it was trademarked. You could see who owns the trademark, and you can see if it's live or dead. A live trademark means that it's being upheld. It could be fought legally in the court systems. A dead trademark means that it has died out. The person who created the initial trademark is no longer using that trademark, and that it should, in most cases, be good to use. The way I like to do it is if I see a dead trademark, unless it has been dead for a long time, I don't use it, because the way that Amazon searches for words is they just go through the database, and they don't necessarily care if it was a trademark that's dead or alive. They just see that it matches the terms that are in their database for a trademark term, and they'll cut that listing out. So unless that's been dead for a while, and you can go to Amazon in a contact email and say, "Hey, this has been dead for a long time. I'm good to use this trademark." I just stay away from anything that hasn't been dead for a little bit. And I actually just want to show you what it looks like if you just search for something that is got a whole bunch of related trademarks. So I typed in dog there, and you could see that there was a. Oh, did I type in dog? Typed in God. Okay. And you could see that there's a whole bunch of related trademarks for God. The word God itself, though, is not trademarked. Okay, you can use God as much as you want, as long as you're not using it in the context in which these trademarks are have been registered. So if we go to God approved, you can see that the word God approved is trademarked, and it's trademarked. Normally it would actually tell you what trademark it's under. This actually doesn't have. Let's just say black and white God. Okay, so you could see that it's trademarked for goods and services, and specifically within goods and services, you could see that it's trademarked for books, pamphlets, guides, featured stories, documentaries, news events, commentaries, social, political issues, interviews. So it will tell you what it's trademarked under. Because when you get a trademark, just because you got a trademark on that phrase, it doesn't mean you got a trademark across every single category that something can be trademarked. If you got a trademark for a merchandise trademark, that means that you can control how it's used in a merchandise, but it doesn't mean you can control how it's used like in media. You know, it's a little different. So normally, like the big brands like Nike and stuff like that, they'll have trademarks, and they'll have that trademark across multiple different types of categories within the trademarkable categories within that same Nike name brand. Okay, so that's how trademarks work essentially, and it's going to work similarly across most of the United Kingdom and Germany. So, but you want to make sure that you're up to date on your local laws if you are living outside the United States, and that you are up to date on trademark law in general, just inside of the United States, as Merch by Amazon is mainly a US based company. So, and as I do state here, any international laws that you may be violating when you create your design will also apply to your account. So you want to make sure you're not violating any kind of international laws too. So acceptable, objectable content that you cannot use on in your designs or in your descriptions when you're building out your listing, is you can't use pornographic content, okay, or any kind of content that refers to the pornographic nature, and you can't use any kind of like offensive descriptors that give imagery to a sexual type of act. You can use curse words in your listing now, so you can use stuff like that, like profanity. It does say profanity is not allowed on youth sizes, but if you're creating an adult size and you're not marking the shirt or the product as a youth product, you can create a profanity type of product. Of course, child exploitation is not allowed. You can't use anything that promotes any kind of hate or intolerance. This is a very vague description, so make sure that if it has something to do with someone's sexual orientation, religion, or anything that's related to a person's identity, that you are very careful on what you're creating a product for. You can create products that are pro whatever, but as long as they're not promoting intolerance or hate, you're good. So you can do pro gender or pro religion or pro LGB or whatever you want, like just as long as it's not promoting like hate or intolerance, you should be okay. Human tragedy is what a lot of people get caught up in. You cannot do a lot of these news stories that where like a plane crashes or someone gets shot or anything like that. You can't create designs around that. Nothing that promotes human tragedy. Okay, it doesn't mean you can't create a World War II shirt. You just can't have a World War II shirt that specifically dictates something that has to do with the killing or the suffering of human life, essentially. You can't promote violence, obviously, or promote any kind of Nazism. For the UK specifically, you can't do anything that talks about mental illness. This is specifically because of the laws that they have in the UK. And then, of course, youth sizes, like I said, have a slightly different policy. You can do profanity, you just can't do it on youth sizes. You can't do anything that's like sexual in nature or vulgar or has anything to do with weapons, drugs, alcohol, or anything of that type of nature for youth sizes. You can promote drugs or alcohol use or weapons in adult sizes. You just can't do it in the youth sizes. Okay. And for designs and descriptions, of course, we don't want blank designs. You can't sell just a black shirt. They don't want you doing that, because then you just have a 500 listings of black shirts. You want to make sure that whatever your design says. So if your design says "I love cats," when you're creating your listing and you're creating your title, and you put your title as "I love cats t-shirts," you want to make sure that the spelling in the title is the exact same that you're going to see in your design. The reason for this is you don't want to mislead your customers. Okay, when they read a title and they think that title is representative of the actual product, and then they get returns, Amazon is not going to like that they're getting returns because your title wasn't representative of their actual product that you're selling. It does happen. People will look at a title and will presume that's what the actual design says because they're not looking at it closely enough, and then they get it at home and they look at it and it's not the exact spelling that they thought it was, and they'll return it to Amazon, and all of a sudden you got a hit on your account because you had inaccurate product titles. So, and the same thing goes for descriptions. You don't want to have a cat shirt and be talking about dogs in your description. You also don't want to be like keyword stuffing in your description. This is like where you put keywords that aren't that don't have really any relevance to the product, or the way that you're listing the keywords aren't very human speaking in nature. Like, it's not in a way that actually a person would normally talk. You're just trying to put keywords in there to get it to get ranked on Amazon. You can't solicitate for positive reviews. You can't actually ask for reviews in your description or in anywhere on your listing. And the same thing goes for like shipping and fulfillment. You can't put guarantees. It's like saying it's going to ship in 2 days or saying it's Prime eligible. You can't do any of that kind of stuff. Amazon will do all that kind of marketing on their listing already. You don't need to do additional marketing. You can't say that you're going to give part of the proceeds to charities, or that this is a charity type shirts. That Amazon has specific ways that they deal with charities, and you can't say they don't want you interfering with the methods that they already have built in for the platform. If you want to create a product for charity on Amazon, you need to go through the proper channels within Amazon, and Merch by Amazon is not the way to do that. Okay. The design quality obviously has to be up to snuff. You don't want to create a small image file size and then try to blow that image up to the appropriate Merch by Amazon file size, because what you end up doing is you get blurry images or low resolution images, and it looks terrible on the shirts, and you get a whole bunch of product returns. Okay. And also, obviously, you can't use personal information in the listings, such as phone numbers, email addresses, URLs, and stuff like that. So, most of this, if you ever created a product on any kind of platform marketplace before, you should kind of understand how this works. For anyone who doesn't, make sure you do just go over this in this content policy in more detail. To see if I've happened to miss anything, because you don't want, like I said, you don't want to get your account strucken and possibly get it removed or suspended because you did something that was obviously listed on their content policy page that could have easily been prevented. Okay, I appreciate you watching this video, and I will see you on the other side.